Hi, my name is Deserie Foley, and I'm the Assistant Director of PAX International. And thank you for tuning in on our second episode of Digital Minds Deciphered. I'm here with our co-host, Steven.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Steven Dubuque. I live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Like Deserie said, this is our second episode of Digital Minds Deciphered. We wanted to start this podcast just as a way of normalizing this type of conversation surrounding the very real and imminent problems of targeting and gang stalking. We're trying to do one show a week. We already have another few lined up after this one. And tonight, I'm really excited. We have Brandon with us. Unlike last week, I've never heard his story, so I'm going to be hearing it for the first time along with you guys. Tonight we have Brandon. So Brandon, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of tell us what it's like being targeted in your case? What does that mean for you?
Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon. It started 7 years ago. It came out of the blue. All of a sudden, I was hearing voices, and I knew something. It wasn't just my brain. And so for the past 7 years, I've dealt with mind control, hypnosis, psychosis from this. They have some very, very devious ways, and a lot of their ways are hidden behind their the chaotic sense that it can seem. And so, I've been through it all, and it's been stuff that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It has really tested me, that is for sure. Basically that. It's just been ups and downs. I've had periods where I'm not being messed with, and I've had periods where I've been forced to stay awake 4 to 5 days at a time, 2 weeks at a time in one instance. And it was very chaotic. I mean, there was basically demons coming in my room, triangulation of sounds, and they would use hypnosis along with that. And I'm not gonna say it was terrifying, but it was very bothersome for sure.
Okay, and Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about before it started happening, how your life was going, and then go into when you first noticed, and if you got any gang stalking?
Yeah, everything was fine. I working a lot, had a full-time job, nothing out of the ordinary until the first words that I heard from them were, so you like to be half asleep and half awake at the same time. And I didn't pay it any mind. I thought I was just dreaming, which half.
Were you asleep? Were you asleep when they said that?
It was early morning, getting close to the time to get up, so I'd kind of awoke and then gone back to sleep. And so I was in the hypnagogic state at that point, and they were talking to me, so I just kind of went back to sleep, didn't pay it no mind. I went to work that night, and they were really, really starting to amp it up, and I was very confused. I didn't know what was going on. A difficulty at work, and when I got off, I was waiting for a ride, so I was sitting in the bar area at my job, and I swore up and down that everybody in the bar was talking about me. Mm-hmm. So then the conversations were just happening within my head. But it was to the point I told my sister, I was like, I heard what y'all were saying about me. And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I was still sure that that's how it happened. And even when I got a ride home, that's what I was telling the woman that gave me a ride home. You know, did you hear everybody talking about me? Did you hear everybody talking about me? And so I went home, you know, went to sleep, woke up in the morning with them threatening to kill me, um, which woke me up out of dead sleep. I was sleeping hard, and all of a sudden they said that, and you know, I rose up out of bed. Um, and at that point, I was staying with my mother. At that point, I went and woke her up, and told her what was going on. Like, this is not normal. Something's up. Um, tried to go back to sleep. I went back to sleep with knives, you know, like sleeping with knives because I thought somebody was trying to come in my house. Um, and then the next day at work, I was hearing they were playing different songs out of different coolers. So I'd go in one cooler, it'd be playing Led Zeppelin. The other one would be playing rap music. You know, and it wasn't I wasn't thinking about it, but it was just being played in different areas. Um, and so for a while there, stuff like that and what happened at the restaurant was getting to me, and I believed that other people were coming after me, and I believed it was people around me. I yelled at an old man as he was leaving the restaurant. I said, "I know what you're up to," and he obviously didn't know what I was talking about. And I kind of just went back inside, but it really threw me for a loop. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and my family ended up sitting me down, talking to me, saying, you know, you need to go to the hospital. And I was like, no, but this is not me. This something else is happening. Something else is happening. But I agreed to go to the hospital. You know, went there for a couple of days, and when I got back out and talked to my family some more, I came to the realization and the understanding that it was, you know, all in my head. Although it was being done to me, it was not the people, you know, it was not the people in the restaurant, you know, plotting against me. It was not customers, you know, leaving and doing things to me. So from, you know, I never had an issue with it after that.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to so much of that. For starters, I mean, you slept with knives next to your bed. I remember at certain nights I slept with a hammer next to mine. Um, man, being kept up for nights on end. It sounds like you got a lot worse than I did. 2 weeks. I wanted to ask you about that when I'm done here, but yeah, I mean, I want to know how you were kept up, because in my case, it was just the V2K all night, and you know, one night whoever was doing this was like singing to me all night in a threatening words. I think he was like improvising as he went along, but it was all basically about, you know, trying to, like, how he's in control, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm gonna die, stuff like that. And also I can relate to, like, so yeah, like my apartment was like, it felt like haunted. I thought people were coming in. I would hear in the V2K doors opening and closing. I remember barricading my doors with furniture and stuff like that. And also, the last thing I wanted to relate with is, like, you know, you thought it was like your coworkers or they're the people around you. I mean, I remember like thinking that the whole neighborhood was in on it, and like I would be like walking up to my apartment, and just anybody I saw walking by, I was like, "Did you just see someone go in there? Like, did you just go in there?" And they looked at me like, what the fuck kind of question is that? You know? So yeah, I can relate with that a lot. I was just curious. You said they kept you up for 2 weeks. What did that look like? How did that go? How did they keep you up? What were you going throughout all the hours of the night?
That was actually the most recent time that I was in psychosis. It was the voices just, they got so bad and so severe, and they had put me under hypnosis, and they were doing the triangulation tactics. You know, I believe that's something similar to binaural beats, where, you know, you get a different frequency in each ear, and then the beat frequency gets created, and then they get in there somewhere, some kind of way after that, and it really gets you. And they were doing this thing where they would respond for me, and it was being observed as it was me saying it, which perpetuated the program to get worse. And I was in such a confused state that I couldn't do anything to stop it. And at that point, like I said, this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I already knew how to stop it, but in that state, there was nothing I could do. I was too confused. Um, and so yeah, I mean, and I was working. I was going to work like that with no sleep, um, hallucinating like crazy. I mean, I I mean, I already see the entities with my eyes open or my eyes closed. With my eyes open, they look like you've seen the Predator, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the invisible camouflage, it blends in with the background. But it'd be like that, but it'll be like full of static. Um, and sometimes they'll walk slowly. Sometimes it'll be like a little thing, a little beam of light, little particle of light that'll like shoot past me real fast. Um,
Wow.
with my eyes closed, they're shadow beings. They walk over to me. They will lay down into me, and I think this is part of the heterodyning that they do when they want to switch out. One of them will come over to me, and it'll say, "I love you," and then the response back will be, "I love you too," and they'll switch. They'll pull one entity out of me, and the new one will lay down into me. And so, like I said, I believe that's part of the heterodyning. And so they were doing that as well. And it got to the point where I left my house. Well, excuse me. First, I sat in my backyard, um, hallucinating, and what I was getting at with the hallucinations, I hallucinate, so-called hallucinate all the time. But when you get deep into psychosis, it's a lot different. I mean, like I said, I was sitting in my backyard talking or telepathically communicating with people that weren't there. Um, at that point, I was convinced once again that they were coming to get me, but I didn't think it was any other people. I just thought, I was so deep into psychosis that I thought that the voices were actually going to be able to do something to me. Um, I ended up on a street uh, with no shoes on, and it was daytime. And the last thing I remembered, I was out and it was dark. So there's a period that I don't remember. I don't remember how I got there.
Oh
Um,
wow.
that's how bad they had me messed up. And I was waiting on a ride from one of the voices in my head. Standing on the corner, the cops came by, asked me if I was okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just waiting on my ride. He's like, okay, well, if you need a ride, I can give you a ride. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I was just happy-go-lucky. Like nothing was wrong, but clearly something was wrong. But I couldn't find it in my brain to understand that. I didn't realize this till after I finally slept that night. And then I woke up and I was like, man, I was out of it. It was like right before, I didn't think I was going to be able to sleep that night because it was the loudest that it has ever gotten. It was this very, very loud ringing. There was this obnoxious like clown music playing, and then all the entities, they would get right in my face. um, and yeah, at that point I felt like I couldn't stop responding to them, and I knew that perpetuated it, so it got frustrating. So therefore that fed into the frustration, and then it got looped back to me to where it made me more frustrated. The whole situation was like that. But I was finally able to sleep. I'm assuming because I was just so exhausted at that point. But yeah, when I woke up, I was 10 million times more clear-headed, and I realized what just happened. But in it, I couldn't really fathom it.
Okay, so first I want to say, Stephen, can you mute your mic? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure if it's from you or Brandon. Oh, it's totally you. Okay. Um, okay, so my question to you, Brandon, is You talk about like entities. Okay. Have you ever seen any of these entities before you were targeted? And what do you think the entities are? Do you think it's the government, or do you think that it is a real entity that you're interfacing with?
Uh, no, I never saw any form of an entity before this. And these, from what I've seen, these are definitely, they're definitely from the government. You know, I've been able to access them enough. You know, a lot of people say you don't believe anything that you hear. Well, I would say don't believe most that you hear, because when you can actually access them through the same techniques that they use on us, you get some information out of them. And so I know that there's three agents that work for the CIA. And yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that they do when they think that they have me in a state where they can really mess with me is the three people will get contacted by the AI voices, and they will go get their attention. And what I hear is the three names of the agents. They'll say, "My name is Jen, I am here. My name is David, I am here. My name is Daryl, I am here." And then it goes further into this process of serious manipulation if they have me in a place where I am susceptible to it, more susceptible to it. Um, I mean,
Yeah,
the voices go along with the entity's movements. Um, and like I said, I believe it's part of the heterodyning. But my vision has been blocked out a good bit from it now because the clones of me are actually assisting me, uh, because they don't want me to have to go through what I've gone through before.
yeah. I can totally relate with being in different stages of susceptibility. I remember on one day, like the worst day of my targeting, like I don't know if you've had any experience with like forced thoughts or like thoughts that I had a thought that really, like in retrospect, it never made sense why I made a decision to like go somewhere. As soon as I made that decision, I decided I had to go over my ex-wife's house, which so I could explain everything to her, so I could show her everything, which was like a horrible idea on so many levels. And as soon as I came up with that thought, um, a car of three strangers pulled right up to me, and just said out the window, "Hey, do you need a ride somewhere?" And I didn't know what was going on at the time, so naively, I took the ride, and it ended up. And long story short, it ended up being like one of the worst targeted episodes of my life, one of the strangest days of my life. In the end, like you said, I was in like a psychosis state where I I was seeing what also could be described as like hallucinations. But I wanted to ask you about that. So I saw like I was shown like a hologram video that I've talked about before. I'm not going to get into that, but um, when you mentioned the Predator, it kind of had like that haze to it that I was seeing. It was like a little movie that played out that I was looking at, but also I experienced like the shadows that you said on some of those nights that I was kept up all night. Like I would be I'd like just look with one eye over, and there'd be like a man-sized shadow. Like it seemed like he was like looming over me, like and I was just like, oh my god, like stop, leave me alone. So I guess my question is like, what do you think of like what do you make of like the visual effects of this stuff? Do you think it's like hallucinations, or do you think that they're projecting energy into your environment somehow, or do you think it's like right into your brain? Because a lot of this, like, I don't understand, and a lot of us,
Yeah,
don't think.
that part it's a little confusing. I mean, they're definitely holograms. Um, and what they told me, some information that I got out of them is that it's actually projecting out of your third eye, the stuff that you see, and the other holograms can project holograms as well. And so it okay, an interesting thing to do, when I see them, something that I used to do all the time, I would imagine handing them a mirror, and every time, for any single one of them, they would freak out and say, "That's not me, that's not me, that's not me." For one, it would totally spoil their plan that they had going on. But I found it very interesting, especially given that their clones, their copies. But yeah, I would imagine, just handing them a mirror, and every single time they grab it and they freak out, run away, because they don't like the reflection that they're seeing.
So when you
Yeah,
say clones and copies, are you talking about the consciousness is copied into like a computer? Can you elaborate on that?
I believe it's a state of mind, that it's you're being copied all the time, but sometimes they take specific states of mind and then represent that back into you. So they tell me that they're always simulating me. So it would, depending on where my brain is at, they would make a copy then. So it would be my conscious state then. But in the same sense, they manipulate that copy as well. So it's not a true representation of someone's consciousness.
David?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen the guy Kevin Christian's channel on YouTube. I think he's just targeted individual on YouTube. He has a lot of similar things to say about hologram EMF broadcasts, and that these people. I don't know. That's all honestly above my head. And it sounds like you have more experience with that, but anyways, do you feel like that? So I noticed that you have gotten information from the voices and stuff, and that do you take that as all true? Because I can say that for when I was getting V2K a lot of the times it was usually a lot of like half truths or no truth at all, just like intended to deceive me. Do you think that they're actually, and I remember you saying that like that they were like almost trying to help you in a certain way. Do you think that's true, or do you think it's some kind of deception?
Well, I have specific ways that I get the information. I don't rely on them to tell me. I basically, I do. I'll put a shiny object in front of, imagine a shiny object in front of one of their faces. Their attention goes straight towards it. Well, in the time that I'm putting that shiny object in front of their face, I'll already have in motion, the question that I want to ask them. And when they'll be looking at the shiny object, but when the question hits them, you'll feel and you'll hear a change in their voice, because they know they just got asked something that they don't need to allow to get out. So what I'll do is imagine snatching a piece of paper from underneath their feet, and then I'll bring it over to my face, and it gets read. And some of the stuff that's been said is, the CIA uses nanotechnology to manipulate your brain. We use your brain against you, things like that. So it's a little process, and I catch them off guard. So it's not like me asking a question and them just answering it.
Right. So you're basically saying that you're connected to a hive mind and that you're connected to their mind, and it's the same thing where you can kind of trick them or fool them into answering your questions, kind of like how they do to you. Is that what you think is happening?
Correct, but I do it a little differently than what they do.
That
They
that's interesting. I have to like try that. I don't I don't ever do anything like that whenever I'm connected and I know they're talking to me. The only thing that I like try to like say to them when I'm connected is get out of my head. You're not trying to help me and I don't care what you have to say to me. I don't want to talk to you. That's usually what I say to them. I never try to like figure out who they are. But maybe I should try something like this. Interesting. And also I wanted to ask you, like, I kind of know what heterodyning is, but just in case somebody else doesn't know, can you explain it? If not, I can explain it because I think I know what you're talking about, just because I've heard other people talk about it.
Hmm. Well, it's overlaying a different frequency over the top of yours.
A consciousness, right? A feeling, an
Correct.
emotion. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna go into a little bit in depth with that. I saw a movie, I don't remember what it's called, but it was something about this program. I completely forgot what it's called, but maybe I'll figure it out and put it in the description. But I saw this movie where the government was experimenting on different people, and they went to a an apartment complex where it was like, for like the poor, and there was all these things going on in this apartment where this person was like sad, crying, doing drugs, drinking, and wanted to kill themselves. And they took that frequency, that feeling, that emotion from that individual, that they're no good, they're going to kill themselves, and all these other emotions that they're feeling at that moment. They take that frequency or whatever they're thinking, and they're able to put it into someone else to make it them think that's their emotions and that's their frequency. And that's what I kind of thought what heterodyning was.
Yes, exactly. And it can it 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 can definitely feel like it is what's close to your thinking, and it comes out at a point where it's close to the point of thought creation within yourself. To me, it always like it feels different than if I were thinking the things. Um, the timing will be different on stuff like that, but you're correct in what you're saying, that is what they do. So a fearful state would be very useful to them.
Now, do you deal with a lot of the like community harassment or workplace harassment or gang stalking? Is that part of your targeting as well?
No, no, my experience has not been any of that.
Oh, wow.
Just yeah.
Yeah, for me also when I was going through it, just but I looking back on it, like I was kind of like very isolated at the time, so I would have been pretty hard to gang stalk. But I was, I'm always trying to, hear about more people's experience because I know that some people deal with both, some people deal with one, some people deal with the other, and I'm just trying to get, I try to hear as much as I can about that.
Yeah, and Brandon, can you I know when we spoke on the phone, and I have a little bit of experience with it. It's not as in depth as you have it, but you had mentioned to me, which I found very interesting, is that you're able to actually play like a video game in your mind. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And that actually led to some very disturbing times for me, extreme torture. So I would close my eyes and this world would pop up, and there'd be a character running around, and I could control him with my mind, make him run around. And then the copies, the clones started doing the same thing, and then that ended up being that all they cared about in me being tortured was kind of it was necessary to keep me awake. So they kept torturing me so they could keep playing that video game. But it's similar, I guess, to like remote viewing, but just like a third
Mm-hmm.
person video game, there's a character and you could run around. I could create the environment that he's in. Like I've told you before, there'd be a forest scene, and if I wanted a lake or a mountain, I would just think it and it would be created. And yeah, they needed me to stay awake, because if I would go to sleep, then there wouldn't be any access to that. So it was probably just a method of torture, but it's something that they focused on heavily for a long time.
Yeah. So, these days, like I'll notice that, like just today, for example, I was laying down, kind of like almost asleep, almost asleep, and then all of a sudden, in my mind, like this man comes to the forefront of my mind, and in a split second, his neck splits open and blood starts pouring out. Like, and I'm not sure if that's targeting or not, but I really think it is, because I don't think thoughts like that. You know,
That's
and I guess
definitely targeting.
yeah, like I really don't. But the reason why I question, and I'm always kind of questioning stuff, and I wanted to ask you about this, is like I haven't had any V2K, audible V2K, or overt symptoms, I guess you could say, of targeting since August of 2022. And I mean, I still have like loud tinnitus, or like the cricket chirping noise, like when I lay down, I still have that. Um, and I think people come into my work, and I think they're gang stalkers, definitely a few times for sure, but nothing major. And I'm not even positive about that, so I don't really like to talk about it too much. But I guess my question is, like, you mentioned that there was times where they would like back off or stop messing with you, because like I'm in the time period that I haven't really been messed with in over a year now. So I'm just wondering, like, what's the longest period of, first of all, I think you already mentioned this, but I forgot, when did you start being targeted, and also when was like the longest time period that they that they backed off of you?
Uh, I started getting targeted December 28th, 2016. And I would say, I mean, it would be up and down a lot of the times. Like I said, I know how to get them off me. I learned how to do that. I learned how to be aware of when they made mistakes. You know, so there'd be periods. Most of the time, it would be like 3 to 4 months, and then they would go back at it for 4 or 5 months, something like that. I mean, I'd still hear them. I hear them 24/7 for that whole 7 years. They don't stop talking. Um, but yeah, I would basically, they would have this whole thing set up, and I knew how to disassemble what they were setting up. It's really difficult stuff to explain, but it's about talking through them, making them think that they thought something that they weren't, which in turn would stop the attempt of torture. So you insert thoughts into them in the same way they would do it to us. You do it to them, and then you get their plan going from, instead of going this direction, you get it going this direction.
Sounds like you've gotten really good at like playing their kind of mind games and using it against them. It's pretty.
Yeah, yeah, and I've the stuff I do now is it's way different, but it has the same effect. It messes them up. It throws them off track. Um, but real quick, the first thing that I did, that I realized that I could alter the program, was, for instance, I held the long vowel sound in a word in my mind. So when you sub vocalize, it's when you're pronouncing the words in your head, and that's how the program thinks that you're saying things. Well, in this case, just say for instance the word was hold. I matched and found the frequency and just held that long O and hold. So they were saying, you gotta hold him, and I caught the O, and I just thought, oh. And after about 3 to 4 seconds, the voice said, "My wish is your command," which I found incredibly interesting. I didn't make a wish or anything like that, but I saw right there that I can alter this. I can change it. I don't have to deal with what they are presenting to me. And it was around that same time. This is in the very beginning. I was actually able to remote view and see the computer program, and it was like similar to Windows. I saw the screen and there were tabs open. The one had the first tab had mind, body, heart, soul, third eye, stomach, and something else as little tabs, and you could click on these tabs. I was able to click on the tabs and mess with it a little bit. On the second page, there was Voice of Reason is the only one that I remember from that. But it was like a little slider, like slide it up for more, slide it down for less. And so I slid the Voice of Reason all the way up, and they immediately began apologizing to me. I said, "I'm so sorry we're doing this. I apologize. I apologize." And then a voice from the back, like, what are you talking about? No, no, no. And then they switched it back, and then they're being assholes again. But
Oh my
there are
gosh.
plenty of there are plenty of ways to alter it.
Can you touch base a little bit? Like, I know most TIs experience when they hear their voices, it's two men and a female. You can touch base on that. And also if you wanted to, like like if you want to talk about this, you can. I think that the program that you're in the program that I'm in, because your targeting is a very similar to mine, has something to do with Project Montauk, which if you guys don't know about that, it's if you saw the movie Strange, or not the movie, the series Stranger Things, that's Project Montauk. They couldn't name it that, but that's what it is based off of. So can you talk about your voices and maybe go into Project Montauk, or if you have any information about that?
I'm not too familiar with Montauk. I know, briefly of it.
Okay, let me just briefly say it, and then you can talk about the voices. Project Montauk is where they were taking psychic children and they were experimenting on them and trying to open another portal or dimension by using these children as experiments, and that's what they were doing. And there was some kind of entity that came through that Project Montauk in from another dimension. I know that the series is just based off of rumors of what the government was doing, but it was a real project. But okay, so I just wanted to throw that in. But go ahead and talk about the voices.
Okay. So yeah, with the psychic thing, um, well, Dr. Duncan said that they pick people with abilities, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly what to say about that. But I do believe what I'm experiencing is clearly different than what most targets experience.
Right.
I don't necessarily know what to make of that. If you know what the reasoning would be. Um, I just I know what I've done with it, and I don't know if that advanced my situation. In like the program that I had to deal with. I don't, I don't know if it was because of the things that I did or it was just decided that I was going to be presented with something like this. But I do know that I've been able to access a lot of things that were supposed to be hidden in this. And seeing things that I was not supposed to be seeing, like the computer program, stuff like that. Um, I I had an experience in the beginning where we were all on a spaceship, um, laying on this metal table, and all four of our heads were near each other. And I believe this was the creating of the hive mind. And I remember fighting against it, and I it felt wrong. And I ended up being outside of a spaceship, and I got coerced into coming back in. Um, I've okay, getting back to the portal thing. I they told me that there are portals in my mind. Um, this is around the same time that I saw the solar system when I would close my eyes. Um, and I was watching one of the entities going through this tunnel, and then it said it went through a portal, um, and that portal ended up going to Jupiter. And they're talking about it, and this is what I'm seeing as well. Um, and interesting thing about that, I was right around that time I decided to look up Tesla. You know, I wanted to see about his 369 energy frequency vibration thing. And right before I go to read it, a voice shoots in out of nowhere and says, "We recreated the universe in your mind to be able to do this to you." And then I go on to read Nikola Tesla's energy frequency vibration theory, and he states that that is the creation of the universe. So that voice came in and told me that they recreated the universe in my mind to be able to do that, and I'm already seeing the solar system. You know, it just, those don't seem like things that would be in a torture program.
Right.
So whether I stumbled upon that or they wanted to test it or it got created, you know, I don't know. But I do think that we can access things that are, you know, not definitely not of the program, but it's hard to describe that there's stuff that's in there. I don't know if it's accessing my consciousness, if I'm accessing something else, if I'm connecting with something higher, because a lot of the times the reactions from the voices, they'll kind of be dumbfounded and not know what's going on. Like a lot of times they tell me that I shouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. They used to tell me that all the time. And so I'll leave it at that. I don't know necessarily what else to say about that.
Dude, I think you gotta start making some videos about all the tricks you've learned and all the it really does, you know, it sounds like you've learned some ways to throw them off, which is awesome, you know. I think a lot of people will be interested in hearing in detail how you do that. Deserie, real quick, you don't have to answer this, but I've been hearing about Project Montauk a bit lately, so I have two great channels to recommend for you. One is Scott Hensler. He actually lives in Arizona, and he's got this 4-part series on Montauk that I think you love, and also this other channel of a guy who claims he was one of those people. I guess he's passed now, but his name is like Zakaos or something, Zakaos. And he's got a bunch of videos on YouTube, and he claims that he was one of those child experiments. But anyway, and I want to go back to, and I didn't know this tonight's interview was going to be so based on like you know, the visual stuff, but like I'm kind of on a kick with that myself, because and I'm actually like working on a video on my own channel about that, like it's going to be called Harassed with Holograms, because I saw a lot of visual stuff in my targeting, man. And you know, it happened over 2 time periods. Once for a few months in 2021, another for a few months in 2022. And you know, like I mentioned earlier, nothing's happened since then, but I just can't let it go, man. Like I don't know how any of that's possible. You mentioned remote viewing. You know, that I was shown, I wanted to ask you, because I was shown holograms a number of times, but it was nothing of like my own doing. I didn't even know what targeting was. I was clueless. I was like a perfect little victim at that point. But you know, it was nothing, like they weren't surprised when I started. Like the first thing I saw was like the guy who I'm convinced was one of my main perpetrators was like waving at me all creepy. That was like the first thing I saw when I was looking at this hologram. And that, but like it was clear, like I could see him where he was at. Like, and I was looking at like a reflective surface on the glass bulb of a normal flashlight, which is crazy. So I guess what my question is, you know, I thought, thinking back on that, I really was like trying to make sense of it. Like, okay, was that remote viewing? Does that have to do with like looking into a crystal ball or something? And, you know, I don't think it does, but like when you, in your case, did they ever like show you visuals that like were intended for you to see? Or like when you saw that computer, do you truly think that they didn't want you to see that by your own doing, you were able to like truly remote view them?
That computer thing was kind of it was kind of presented to me like a happenstance, but then I immediately decided I was going to try to use it, and that they didn't expect, um, for sure. What was the other question? The one before that?
I get okay. So, have you ever been like shown like the shadow things when you saw those? Those were not of your own doing, right? That was just like harassment, and their skits, I guess,
Okay.
visual that were put on for you.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been shown, and this pieces together with something else that I've seen. Um, this happened a couple weeks ago, to where I was shown a sine wave, just like a sound wave, kind of like that. Well, the two loops, they started spinning, and both of them turned into circles. Both of those circles merged together, and then I saw a single human eye, had eyelids, eyelashes, all that. And that energy went through the eye, through the pupil of the eye, and then all of a sudden I'm being shown, like there was a flashlight. It was like a dark room, like with a flashlight, and I'm being shown a human spine, and it's like then we go all the way down the spine, and it went to the tailbone and came back up, and it said then we activate your third eye. Um, so I was shown something similar to the Kundalini before, and then with that one I took an active role in that as well, and then like I was moving the energy balls in that crisscross spiral pattern. So a lot of times I'll get shown stuff, and then excuse me, and then I'll decide to do something with it as opposed to just view it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is wild. So Brandon, a question for you. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I experienced, because I think you kind of experienced the same thing. Is that during my targeting, during the worst part of my targeting, I always believed that the government was experimenting on me, on trying to open another dimension. And when they were opening this dimension, that's when the shuttle beams would come in. So I always like, I mean, you had stated in the beginning that you think it's all the government. I don't know, like of course I'm still learning and I don't have the answers to everything, but I always thought that there was like always like some negative entities that get attached to this program, where they come through that dimension and then they feed off of our energy. I always thought those shadow beings that I saw were real, and they're just, they're low vibrations. Christian will call them demons. We call them low vibrational beings. So do you think that that's what it is, or do you think it's all the government?
Well, okay. The way that people can supposedly see ghosts, and I've even heard aliens lumped into this category, is by matching a frequency. So, in that same sense, the government could be doing this, but you could, your brain could be accessed in the same way by demonic entities, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I guess is there any coping mechanisms that work for you that maybe other targeted individuals could benefit from, like trying to get a night's sleep and they're just getting B2K all night long? Is there anything that you can do that helps you sleep at night?
Well, I mean, I had to end up getting prescribed sleep medication to ensure that I could sleep, because when it gets chaotic, it can be hard, almost impossible to not pay attention to. But people should know that they can train their own brains to be able to achieve that. Just have to be aware of, you create mistakes and be aware of their responses when they make mistakes, and you can get them to back away. I mean, anybody could do this. When the entities come at me, I just simply tell them to turn around, but I say it in a specific, or think it in a specific way. The thought needs to go undetected, and so it's not instantly read by another one. You have to get the thought to that entity without another one picking up on it. But yeah, if people can be aware and notice the things, and just know that they can do this with their own mind, that peace of mind alone would help to get sleep. I mean, knowing that you don't have to just deal with what they present to you would be a tremendous help.
And Brandon, we're getting close to our hour. We're trying to keep the interviews like close to an hour. But my last question to you would be, we spoke briefly the other day, and you stated that you wanted to talk about how beautiful the mind is. I don't know if you want to touch base on that, or talk about something that you wanted to say before we close.
Well, it's just it's amazing to me, the stuff that I've experienced. There's not a book for any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the presentation of this program is supposed to be so overwhelming that you feel helpless and defenseless. And I've been able to reverse that, and it takes a new way of thinking. You can't, if they're a certain way to you and it agitates you, you can't call them whatever. You can't, that doesn't work. You have to learn to rearrange your words to still stand up for yourself, but you can't call them what you think that they're being, because that's going to perpetuate more of that same behavior. They'll oh, that's what I am, then they do stuff like that. And so some of the maneuvers that I do are me imagining like quick twitches in my brain, and this is one of the main ones that they can't figure out. And so I find it very, very amazing that even put under that much pressure, that the brain can still come up with solutions when it seems like there are none. So the quick twitch, real fast, it's just like if I pretended to wiggle my brow like Bewitched does her nose. I know it may sound silly, but it is very, very efficient. And that completely stops them from attempting any kind of torture.
Wow, that's very interesting, man. Well, hey, it was great having you on tonight. Thanks for being our second guest on Digital Minds Deciphered. Deserie, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, thank you so much, Brandon. I know we've spoken before, but now like I get more an idea of what you're going through. And I think that, a lot of what you're going through is I'm going through too. Our targeting is very similar. But I just want to thank you for coming on and being brave to tell your story, and I appreciate you and honor you.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to close now. Okay, good night, everybody.
All right, guys, have a good night.
I'm trying to stop recording.